All right, everybody, we're coming up on 5:30 and I try to honor everyone's time. So I'll start promptly and then hopefully wrap so that you all can get on to the next thing this evening. Like I said, we're coming up on 5:30. Thanks so much for coming to this meeting. And I am recording it so that way anybody who's not present is able to get the information that they need. Um, we're back on Zoom. It's almost like it's 2021 or so. But I promise not to hold you all hostage for too long tonight. I do want you all to have the chance to get the good information. It's funny, when I was originally planning, looking through my notes for tonight, um, I was thinking, oh, I'll just talk about those three things, the ACT and GPA and essays. And then I was like, but I might want to add this, and I might want to add this. So um, there's a lot on this agenda. However, like the first three things are probably the things, or maybe four things are the things that we'll spend most time in. And the other items are just kind of general content that is helpful to know. Please know that you don't have to memorize any of this. You are not expected to remember all of these details. I like to be able to give parents and families definitely like the most relevant points, but then there are times when things are set up kind of strangely, or there might be questions that come up um, about certain topics, and so often I'll offer a little bit more information there. um, and then of course, there's some Zooms where we'll take like a really deep dive if you really want to get into it, to better understand it. But anyhow, this is our agenda for tonight. And again, for those of you who are just hopping on, I'm going to make sure to hit all of these. Some of them are going to be a little bit more explanation than others. All right. The first thing that feels really important for you all to know is that this is a reminder, your junior is taking the ACT here at school on March 19th. That test is going to be entirely on the student's iPad. And please don't worry, they're going to get lots and lots of reminders to charge them up. But of course, it wouldn't be a real reminder if we didn't have parents and families on board. So that's something that you'll hear a little bit more about, and definitely your junior will hear more about in the coming weeks. I've already talked with those who were in English classes on last Friday about, how that day will go, just kind of the general rundown. That test is entirely on their iPads. In the past, it's been on paper, and this year is, I believe, maybe that this may maybe we did them on iPads in the fall. I'm sorry, it's hard for me to remember. However, we're ready. We are so lucky. I was actually talking with Dr. Billing, our testing coordinator, today about how we're so lucky that we already have our own devices. Our students have their own devices because that's often really a challenge for a lot of schools, and we're lucky enough not to have that challenge. For the ACT at Crosstown High on the school day, which is what this one will be in March, students don't have to register. Before the test, I'll do a little bit of work with them on creating their My ACT account if they don't already have one. And that's so they'll be able to just easy breezy access their scores once they post them so they can see how they did. But there's no need to sign up, there's no need to register. The other thing that's important for parents to know about this ACT test and when we're administering it at school is that there's not a writing section. And there are a couple of reasons why. The writing section is actually optional, and usually the state decides whether or not that is a requirement, and it's not a requirement in Tennessee. So and upon, further research, of course, like when I first started in this work, I was like, well, gosh, well, does that put our students at a disadvantage if they don't have, a writing score to submit, or does it, change the strength of their application? And it does not. It doesn't change it at all. It's just that there are certain schools, and I'm going over this slide. There are certain schools that do require the writing section for admissions. So if your student has any of these three, I think it's three, yeah, three on their list, and that's Martin Luther College, Soka University of America, and the U.S. Military Academy at West Point, they will at some point need the writing section, which means that they would probably need to take the test on another date at a different location. And I'll give more information about that later. But again, our district does not require the writing section. It's entirely optional. And truly, there are only these 3 colleges out of the bajillions that exist that require that writing section for admissions. Um, it's not required, but recommended specifically by Colorado School of Mines, Bethune-Cookman, Morehouse, and Malloy, which is really interesting that they made official statements on that. I know many students who in the past from Crosstown who have been accepted to Bethune-Cookman and Morehouse without a writing score. So just for reference, that's just something helpful to know. So again, like if you are looking at, the composition of the ACT and you're thinking like, okay, how is it different from, when we were in high school, that writing section is not required. It's totally optional. A lot of students and families have been asking about ACT tutoring, and Memphis Community University is who I recommend. They offer one-on-one ACT tutoring, and it's held at the Memphis, the main branch of the Memphis Library, the Benjamin L. Hooks Library that's on Poplar Avenue. It's usually on Sundays, and they run 1-hour sessions. And students have seen this flyer. I have given them this information in their English classes, pulled out their phone, scanned the QR code. Maybe that's where they stopped, was just scanning the code, but maybe some of them have scheduled a time. And so for those learners who prefer to have like a one-on-one person work with them, I highly recommend this. There are some students who are totally fine with like logging on to the ACT website or using a practice book. Either of those is fine as well. I have another QR code here on the screen that I've also shared with juniors last Friday in English classes to let them know, like, hey, if you're at home and you want to do this on your own, or Sundays, maybe some of our juniors have a job and Sundays they're not available to go to the library for tutoring, at least like to get in some time using the resources that are on the ACT website. So that way you feel like a little bit more comfortable going in and you don't feel like you're getting any kind of, big curveball. But again, in those Friday English classes, I'm going to talk with them some more about just like really simple, general, like, I don't want to say techniques, but tricks, and strategies when approaching the ACT. So then that way, they feel a little bit more comfortable with it. Truly, it is one of those tests though that like you just have to take it once, and then once you take it, it's not scary anymore, and you know what it was like. And so if they do decide they want to take it again, they're able to. A lot of students will take the ACT and then receive their score, and then they'll kind of wonder, based on their experience, they'll think, well, I wonder how I would do on the SAT. And so I recommend, if you're curious about that or your student is curious about that, go ahead and consider taking the SAT as well. I always am kind of cautious, like all these tests can get in your head and be a little bit of a head game with all these numbers and you like competing with yourself. And I think that like there's definitely some of that going on. And I think that those goals are healthy to establish. But again, like if it's something you're just curious about and your student is curious about and they want to check out the other test, I recommend doing that. I'm going to put up the next slide. I believe it's the next slide, has like a whole lot of information, and you don't have to read any of it, or you can look at it and take a picture of it and look at it later more closely. But it's basically like a breakdown. Oh wait, not that one. Just kidding. It's the next one. Anyhow, for the ACT, there are, let me tell you this one first. There are national test dates, and this is in addition to our test day at school, which we'll have on March 19th. So for the ACT, these are the other ACT test dates that are known in 2024. They'll announce more dates as time goes on. They really usually schedule them out just like on the school year calendar, which is why it stops at July. But juniors will have, access to all of this information this week. But you parents, like if you are thinking like, well, maybe we took the ACT before, or maybe one of those schools that requires the writing section that was on the screen earlier, is on your students list. Like think about signing up for one of these. Again, like no requirement, because the ACT will be on March 19th at school. So just know that this is here, and I'll also send out these graphics to everybody after our meeting, so that way you have easy access to it if you're curious about it, and you can hang it on the fridge if you want. So again, some students take the ACT and are curious, like, oh, okay, I got this score on the ACT. I wonder how I would do on the SAT. And the reason why, students often want to find out about the other test is because the ACT is a lot about timing. It is about content and purpose and or utility and other things, but the timing part is a big part of the ACT. Like it's a test of stamina, and so the great thing about taking the SAT is that you can kind of see how the difference is with their timing. So I'm going to put up this chart up here that, like I said, a lot of information, no need to memorize it, no need to split hairs over it, but this is something that students and parents are often curious about. So the tests are about the same length. And the ACT has a science section, which is different. You can see that the order of the sections is similar in that well, actually, no, it's not. The reading starts first for SAT, but the test format is different. So you don't, especially in the math sections, you don't have as much time per question in the ACT as in the SAT. And then the number of questions per section varies. I mean, you can kind of compare them. And then, of course, we know the scoring ranges are different. You can super score both. They have that in common. And then I'm just kind of quickly running down this list because I don't want y'all to get too caught up in all of this because it's a lot, but it is helpful to know that both of the tests are free when you take them here at school on a school day. The SAT is only offered at school in the fall semester. So that will be in the fall of 2024. So otherwise, if you or your student are curious and want to take the SAT, that will happen at an area school. And sometimes those school, like you can sign up through the College Board website, and that sometimes those schools will be Memphis schools that are hosting an SAT test date, and then sometimes, most of the time, it's usually Olive Branch High School, and so yeah, like that's just something to be aware of, that like on that test day, is that there's a little bit of a drive if it is the Olive Branch location. We do offer fee waivers for those who qualify for those national test dates. So if you are, or if your student would qualify for that, they can see Dr. Beeling, and Dr. Beeling will issue like a special student code. So when they sign up, there's not a registration fee. But when it comes to these tests, particularly the ACT, because that's the one that we're going to take here, like each state gets to decide like which test is the requirement. And for Tennessee, it's the ACT. And so that's the reason why we take it. That's the reason like you'll hear more about it, is because it's just like automatically in-house. Both of them have great study books, and truly, even if your student is taking the SAT, they could still go and work with the tutors at Memphis Communiversity, because the work that they're doing will be valuable for either test. So there's that. And here are our SAT national dates, the national testing dates. Those are listed through the end of 2024. They are actually known. And again, I'll send this poster out to you all, and students will have access to it too, if that's something that they want to pursue. Generally, students aren't really interested in the SAT until they get their ACT score. So just know that like if your student is kind of, lukewarm about it right now, like there might be some curiosity sparked once they take the ACT and see their score, because they might be like, well, let me just see what this other one looks like, especially for those for whom timing is a challenge. So just know that that's happening. That's an option. Okay. This is student facing. This is written specifically for juniors. So I feel pretty confident that parents in the Zoom room know what a GPA is, but there's some juniors who may have heard of it and are not, and are not like really thinking about that, and that's fine. But again, this is student facing content here, and it's work that we have talked about in the junior English classes. At a lot of academically competitive schools, GPA is everything. And it's not that we don't feel like those numbers are unimportant, or no, we feel that those numbers are unimportant, but it is, something that we don't promote that competitive culture, because truly we want students to be the best version of themselves that they can be and reach their own full potentials. And that's one of the reasons why, our XQ learner outcomes also are just about as important as the GPA. There is space within college applications for each student to be able to talk about their XQ learner outcomes and to be able to talk about their growth within that. So just so you parents know, like this is some of the discussion when we're all together in English classes on Fridays. The other part of this is that, immediately students are curious, like, well, she's talking about a GPA, like I got to find out what mine is. And they're all going to receive their most updated transcripts this week on Friday. And just so that you all are aware of the messaging that they're getting and the conversations that are happening in those Friday classes, they have been given the charge to show up to school, on time, and truly give it their very best. And that's always, but really truly, like for this last semester, they've got to come to school, stay all day, don't check out early because somebody said something that you didn't like, or because of something that is temporary. We all have those experiences where we can, a temporary feeling is sparked, and we often want to just throw the day away. Well, we can't do that. You guys, I told them, I was like, you've got to stay at school. You've got to do your best. Really, really turn in quality work that you're proud of, so that when you look back on the semester, you'll know I did my part. I really took responsibility. And it was, I know that that may sound like a cliche, Pinterest meme to some students, but I did get some feedback from others who said, like, no, that is exactly what I needed to hear, because I've been dragging and like I really needed this. So, support them with making sure that they don't have any missing assignments, and that the work that they're turning in is like really good work that they feel good about and they feel proud of. So again, this is just so that you all are looped into the messaging here for them on those Fridays in English class. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about are college essays. And there's this is, like I said, some of the things that I'm going to talk about tonight are like kind of general, like I just want you to get the important stuff, and then later on we'll have the opportunity in other meetings for you to be able to get a little bit more in-depth information about the work. But I'm going to tell you a little bit about the essays that are involved in the college application process. We have the main dish, the primary dish essay is called the Common App essay, or sometimes I call it the primary essay, because not all colleges use Common App. But most of them are kind of aligned with the prompts that are given in Common App. Anywho, that is like the big essay that is their personal statement that says, let me tell you, Mr. College, let me tell you about me. so that you have a better understanding of who I am and what's important to me and this thing that I experienced, whatever it is that we write about. That is the Common App or the primary essay. There are often for colleges, certain colleges, not every college, but what are called supplemental essays, and those are shorter than the Common App or primary essay. Supplemental essays give the colleges the chance to choose another essay question that is specific to their school. Some of them will ask questions like, we really value at our school, and well, yeah, we really value at our college. We value service work. What can you tell us about your experience in service work, in helping others? So that's an example of a supplemental essay. And then there are some that will just straight up ask students, why is this college or university, why is our college or university your number one? Like, why is it the best fit for you? And they want they want to hear all about it. They want to know, why you feel like um, you're the best fit or they're the best fit for you. So yeah, that's usually what is in the supplemental essays. And then the scholarship essay, it's interesting, like they vary year to year. And of course, scholarship to scholarship, and these are for private scholarships, not necessarily institutional scholarships, but can be actually, now that I think about it. And those essays are, generally I find that the topic, sometimes it has something to do with the thing that students do that they're really passionate about, like that thing that maybe, and it doesn't have to be, something that the rest of the world sees as being like, some of us are like, see only certain things as valuable. Like it can be anything. It's the thing that you do that makes you lose all track of time, where you like need the reminder to stop what you're doing and go that kind of thing. So that comes up often in scholarship essays as a topic. But also, they're often asked like really, really broad questions like, what are your career aspirations? Or what would you do with your college degree? And how will you, improve this green earth? So just know that like that there are obviously like essays that are like the big ones, right? The Common App or primary essay, and then sometimes those supplemental essays. These are not essays that are expected to be done all at once. Like it's a process because again, like this is a marathon. But I just want y'all to know that like this is what is on deck for the coming year, is that we've got some writing to do. And so that's why we got this up here. So I also want you all to know that there are going to be some opportunities for essay workshops. And the 2024 summer workshops are going to be like, I'm going to be teaching those. They're not like crazy long, week-long anything. Like I'm talking like a few days, because we'll stay, for a few hours and of course take breaks. But yeah, like we'll be ideating and composing a Common App or primary essay draft. And yes, like it would be nice if, and it may be the case that some students like really, really knock it out and make a lot of progress there. We just got to start somewhere. We're going to do a bunch of ideating, get some words on the page, and then let it grow from there. And this is a process that I'm very familiar with in being a story producer for many years. And I have a lot of training and experience with it. It's not been something that I've offered in the summer in the past because I've usually run a summer internship program here at Crosstown. I feel like it's at a point right now where it's a good idea to shift and allow our students to have a little bit more time in the summertime to work on this. So that way going into the fall semester, the workload doesn't feel so heavy, like it's dispersed a little bit. And I'm going to put out the dates at the end of Q3 before spring break. So that way everybody can look at their calendar and think about when is practical if your student wants to participate, because they may feel like, you know what, I'm not ready for that, and I'll get to it later on when we start the school year, and that's okay too. I will say that one of the reasons why, well, actually, I'll talk about it in a minute with when it comes to like that the admissions timelines. Just know that this is an option. The other options that we have, the other opportunities are in the fall of 2024 when they come back to school. And that is during enrichment period. Miss Coleman, who is our creative writing and AP research and AP seminar instructor here at school, she offers enrichment periods that are specifically for college essay writing. We've also in the past had a partnership with Rhodes College, and it has been really productive and really fruitful. Students have come and worked with our students, our seniors, on shining up their essays, and sometimes, starting from scratch, not just shining them up, doing the whole process with them. And right now we're figuring out what that's going to look like next year, because I feel like we're going to make some adjustments to our calendar and try to align with theirs. And we're hopeful that we can continue that, because it's been a great partnership for the past 3 years. And then always, always, and forever, our students are welcome to send their essay work to the members of the English department here at Crosstown for feedback. And that is something that, stands no matter what time of year it is. Our teachers are always excited to offer feedback. So they're more than welcome to send their drafts around and see what kind of feedback they get and what edits they could make potentially in order to, in order for them to be able to send their most authentic selves away to these college admissions people. So it's nice to have more opportunities than just a summer workshop. Okay, this is kind of like just kind of throwing this at you. It's not entirely out of nowhere because it is relevant. But in terms of like wrapping your minds around the coming year and this process, it's a good idea to just know what the different timelines are that exist for different colleges and their admissions. Some colleges, I'll start at the top, some colleges offer rolling admissions and rolling admissions only, because it varies from college to college. Like not all of them do all of these things that are on this list. It's really interesting. So some of them only offer rolling admissions. Some will offer it in a specific window of time. So that's something just to keep in mind when you all are, nosing around or talking about, nosing around on school links or on the internet and talking to each other about possible schools to apply to, just to get an idea, and once your students and I like really solidify even the first iteration of their college list, this is something that we're going to be very closely attentive to, because it can really play into their strategy and timeline. So a lot of students this year, and I think that every year the numbers increase, a lot of students choose the early action admissions plan. And one of the reasons why they do that, or a couple of reasons why they do that, is that early action means that, if you submit an application for early action, colleges feel like you're really interested in going there. And you're so interested that you want to get your application in early. And also, you're probably a student who wants to get in early to find out what kind of institutional scholarships they will offer you. Okay. Early action is not a commitment saying, I'm applying because I'm ready to sign my name in blood and come to your school. That's not what this is. Early action is, I am taking action to express my deep interest in coming to your college and finding out what kind of institutional scholarships you're interested in or that you're giving to students. And so that deadline usually is November 1st or 15th. Um, but again, varies by college. So as you're searching, be in tune with that. Um, I try to, because everybody is so different and unique and all of their plans are really different. Um, strategies are going to look different. Every once in a while, I'll make a very general statement, and here is one. Like a really general statement is that if your student is making progress and feeling ready, it is a good idea to shoot for early action as your deadline. That's a really general statement. I don't think that it applies to every single student, because everybody's different. But I recommend just generally shooting for that. And there are a number of reasons, a couple of them being exactly what I said about, expressing interest and also about qualifying for merit scholarships. But additionally, like, this is a marathon, and it's really nice for students to be able to go into their Christmas break, their winter break, um, with that behind them, like with that part of the process behind them, and for them to feel like, okay, I have done my part for now. So generally speaking, I recommend that. Now, the next one on this list, early decision. Early decision is very different from early action, even though, the November appears to be the same. Early decision, generally speaking, is when your student is so 1000% positive that the school that they're applying to is the one, that they are willing to commit to attending that school if they are admitted. Um, and it's interesting because every college has different policies around early decision. There are some that say, if you apply early decision to us, you may not apply anywhere else at all until we give you an admissions notification and say yes or no. And then there are some colleges that will say you can apply here early decision, and if you applied anywhere else early action, generally speaking, once you hear from us, if we say yes, you need to withdraw those applications from the other schools. So again, when you're looking at colleges, just think about, take those things into consideration when you're looking at the fine print, and maybe make a little note about that to yourselves about, okay, this is how their early decision works. Colleges also are adding in, like, we have early decision 1 and we have early decision 2, and they all outline what the policies around that are on their websites when you go to the admission sections of their website. So just like, as you're looking through admissions and like what their requirements are, and what the timelines look like, just make note of that. I feel like, obviously early decision 2 is still somewhat of a commitment, but it happens a little bit later than early decision 1. It's really interesting, and honestly sometimes kind of odd the way that the policies are set up. But I am sure that the admissions folks have a good reason, and there are probably students who really benefit from it. But it's just something important to be aware of. And then again, or not again, but finally, there is always like regular decision, which is perfect for students who maybe become aware that they're like, okay, I am awake, I am aware, I am ready to do this, and I want my time, and for the timeline for them, maybe that they do it a little bit later. You applying early regular decision does not mean that you're not going to get scholarships. Students will. They will receive merit scholarships. That's just how it is. I think that I always, again, like, because this is such a marathon, I always think, like, let's just get this done for your, students, for your sake. Like, let's get it done a little bit on the earlier side, and then that way you don't feel like you have to maintain this level of stamina for so long. We had plenty of students in the past 3 years who all have done regular admissions and it's been fine, and again, they've received scholarships. But we also, I just want you all to know that like it's a little bit later. Oftentimes when students apply, for regular decision, they may not hear back from the college until, end of February or beginning of March. And sometimes that can be a little bit frustrating for some students because they're ready to know what options they have and what choices they have. So again, it's that we're gonna see throughout next school year, and it's been this way every school year. You'll see uh students that like so early as like September will like, pop up on your radar, whether your child is telling you about, oh, so and so got into MTSU, or so and so got into Murray State or Fisk University. It's because they use rolling admissions. And so it's just this, in a certain window of time, it's just this constant flow of applications being processed. And honestly, these wonderful schools that offer rolling admissions, like because they produce results so quickly, it makes a lot of other students feel like they're behind. And they're not. It's just that they operate on this certain calendar in this certain system. So these are the timelines. And if y'all have any questions, you're welcome to pop them in the chat as you think of them. This, I think this might be coming up on, okay, just to like give y'all a picture of what makes up a college application. These are the parts that I actually, like, now that I'm looking at it, I'm like, wait a second. I mean, it does have everything on here, but not as in depth and specifically. So I'll start at the top, which is like, which is the application, and it says with or without essay. There are some colleges that don't require an essay. I I always recommend that seniors write an essay and like engage with one of the opportunities that we have, because in the past there have been students who, like I said, maybe pass up the opportunity to have some help with writing because it doesn't feel like it's the right fit for them at the time. And then shortly after that, they discover that, oh my gosh, I am so ready for this. I've never been more ready for this. And then they don't feel like they have all of the things that they need. Maybe they don't feel as confident about their essay, or their timing feels a little bit off. So even if an application, like if you look at a list or you look at the requirements of schools eventually, and you're thinking like, okay, well, this one doesn't need an essay and this one doesn't need an essay, that's fine. We still need to write one, because whether it's for a scholarship or for a supplemental, they're going to need essays. And honestly, like, it's also kind of like eating your veggies, because you have this amazing, even if you write the essay and you don't need it for the application, you still have this amazing snapshot of you in time. So it's a really, really special thing to have that kind of reflection and that piece of writing from when your child is coming up on this big milestone. So just know that even when colleges do not request an essay, I'm all for our students writing them. Again, the essay, either primary essay or supplementary essay, and that's also called the Common App essay, the primary one is, that is part of their application. And that gives colleges a little bit more of a picture of who your child really is, and also like using their own voice. They're able to tell their story, their learning experience, whatever it is that they choose to write about, to give the colleges more information about them. Because again, the application is so nuts and bolts. It's just like every application you guys have ever filled out. It's like, what's your name? What's your zip code? Give us your demographics. Like, how did you hear about us? That sort of stuff. So that's not, and that's not going to tell them very much about your student. So that's one of the reasons why we write the essay, and really use that opportunity. Especially, like, there's colleges that will say like, oh, the essay is optional. I'm like, no, it's not. If it's optional, that doesn't mean it's optional. Like, we're doing it. We want to turn in to the colleges the very best version of you. Like exhaust all of those blanks and tell them all about how wonderful you are and all of the incredible things that you're doing. And of course, high school students don't feel like they're doing incredible things when they really are. So, I got to pump them up and tell them they're worthy, and I might need your help, parents. I'm also, when we send documents for applications, one of the documents that we send, or that I send, is called the initial transcript. And what that is it's all of your students' classes and their grades from each class, starting from when they were in ninth grade. And I think there's a handful of students who maybe took some classes in eighth grade at other schools that for which they received college credit. That'll be on there. But basically any class for which they got college credit from ninth through 11th grade, through the end of 11th grade. And so one of the things that I talked about with them on last Friday was about how, like, now's your chance. Like, you got to show up. Don't check out early, come in on time. Don't leave early. Do your best. Really finish out this semester strong, because that is part of the look that colleges are going to see, they're going to get of you, is from this initial transcript. And so that transcript is generated for the class of 2025, usually the first week of June after the school year ends. And so this coming June in 2024, that first week, that initial transcript will be generated, um, and it will have their grade point average on it, and it will have all of their classes. And then that way, when the time comes, we have it prepared and ready to send off to colleges. That is something that they look at. The next item on the list, the test scores, like, this is really interesting. I'm sure some of y'all have heard that there are a lot of colleges that are test optional, meaning they do not require a student to submit their scores unless, and I'll use Rhodes College as an example, because the way that they phrase it is really, I feel good about it. They said, if you have test scores that you're really proud of and you worked really hard for those test scores and you feel good about them, send them to us. But if but they also give students the opt out, right? And it's interesting, like, students still receive merit scholarships from universities and different colleges, even if they don't submit test scores, like if it's not a requirement, if it's test optional, because colleges are really looking for more than a test score. Now, in the state of Tennessee, like any of the institutions, UT Knoxville, Martin, Chattanooga, University of Memphis, TSU, they are using test scores. And I do know that at University of Memphis, they only use test scores for the purpose of knowing which math class students are going to be in when they attend. But otherwise, like, the University of Memphis is not using them in admissions. I wish I could say that I know about the other institutions. I don't know. I only had an in at University of Memphis, and got that information from them because of that. And it was not a secret. It was just that, like, I happened to be in the right place at the right time to hear it. But those test scores, like I said, depending on the individual student strategy, there are some students who maybe, take those tests and test really well. They can use those test scores as part of their application in order to get scholarships, of course, but also for admission, especially if your student is thinking, like, I really want to apply to what's known to be like a really competitive school. Test scores can be helpful with that. And again, the state of Tennessee is really good and transparent about like the test score requirements as far as qualifying for specific scholarships. So at some point, and maybe even it'll be on Friday, I'm going to make sure that I give your students some of that information. I've got, little brochures that say, from the state of Tennessee, that say, if you score this, then you get that. And then that way, you all can think about that. Again, nothing to really split hairs over at right now, because they haven't taken, the majority of juniors haven't taken the ACT yet. If you have taken the ACT already, or if your student has, it'll kind of give you a little bit of perspective on possibilities, especially if you're looking to go to school in state. Uh, I I have to say, as the college advisor, but also as a parent, when my daughter and I were searching for colleges and we would go and look up colleges online and we would see all of the data and like the required, test score range. My daughter didn't fit into those test score ranges at many of those schools, and she still applied and she still got in. And I don't think it's because of, like she didn't really want me to be her advisor last year. So it's not as though there was any sort of like, like special treatment or anything like that. It was like, no, like let's just do this and give it a shot. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is that like it is helpful to use the internet, of course, like as your tool for looking around and just getting ideas for what could be a good fit for your child next year. But I think that like it's important not to rule anything out just based on what you see online as a test score range. If they've taken it before or even after they take the ACT and you're like, oh my gosh, like they want you to have a this and you've got a this, for your score. Like I don't know. I just think that it's a good idea to look at that and maybe ask me about it, or your student can talk to other seniors. Actually, spoiler alert, seniors are going to visit the English classes in the spring quite often and talk a lot about their experience planning for college. And when they come to visit, all different kinds of seniors with all different kinds of plans come to talk to juniors, and some of them are the students who maybe really, really invested themselves mentally and emotionally in the ACT. Some of them are, and like scoring and scoring and scoring. Some of them are, and like how they're using it in the strategy. Some of them are students like my daughter who like was like, I'll take the ACT. Okay, well, I guess I'll do some practice and then take it and then, know that I've done my due diligence and then let it go and not submit my test scores. Some of them are going to more tech and some, we have all different types of experiences. So just know that like, it's just going to look different for everybody. And the options on the internet are sometimes overwhelming and confusing. And, I always try to impart to our juniors that like you gotta, as our learner outcomes say, you have to consume critically. You really have to look at that information and think about what you want to do with that information, because sometimes those schools inflate their numbers. Anywho, I'm like, don't get me started. I'm going to move on to the letters of recommendation. And that's something that we're going to work on this semester as well. And it's kind of the final component of their applications. So there's a letter that comes from me as the college advisor. The technical name for it is the counselor recommendation, that I send to the colleges, that I write for each student, based on the work that I do with them in this process. And just, having known them or been in their periphery for the past 4 years, I tell them all, and they're a little bit shocked. On the first day of English class with me last Friday, I was like, I've actually been your advisor, but I've been your peripheral advisor for a few years now. And, I'm definitely a person who's going to come way more into your line, main line of vision. So I will write their counselor recommendation, and I send those to our schools that are on their list. The other recommendations that they are going to work on are for specific teachers, and that's one of the times at our school when that's like really special that really makes for a unique experience for everyone when it comes to college planning, because our students get the chance to think about, the academic teacher with whom they've worked, who they feel like maybe saw them struggle, maybe saw them grow, And it's really an honor for both teacher and student to take the moment to acknowledge that. And that's something that we're going to work on together as far as the steps go, because we use this task as a practice for our grace and courtesy, and really allow the student to lead in terms of composing this letter, and the teacher is able to collaborate by offering their perspective on the experience that they've had learning together. So just know that those are in the picture. Now, oftentimes juniors will say things at this point in the school year like, well, I don't think I'm going to go to college, so I don't need to do letters of recommendation. Okay. However, like I hear that. However, in life, you need letters of recommendation. You just do. If you are a person who maybe is thinking like, I'll take a gap year, or I want to go into the workforce because I'm really passionate about this certain work and I have an opportunity. Okay, take a letter of recommendation with you, and that strengthens your application. Make sure that you have more voices than just your own telling your story. Those letters of recommendation are really powerful. So I always tell juniors, like, this doesn't feel like something that would be useful and important right now, but it will be. And of course, I always use myself as the example, or any of our Crosstown teachers. I'll say, just to work at this school, like, we needed 3 letters of recommendation. So consider entering into this next phase of your life with this as a tool and a means of communicating how amazing you are and all of the amazing things you've been doing in the past 4 years. So that's something that, again, like, we're going to work on together later on in the semester, but is a really, really important and required component of these college applications and moving on to this next phase. Okay, looking ahead, and I know it's 6:21. I don't want to hold y'all hostage for too much longer. Looking ahead, again, Friday English class visits are happening. When we have a weird, or we switch around our schedule and we don't see every single class on Friday, sometimes we'll deviate from that. But I plan to be infiltrating every Friday because we've got a lot to do and a lot to talk about. And there are lots and lots of questions that I love to hear. Again, March 19th, the ACT is happening at school. No registration needed. None at all. And again, there will not be the writing portion because it's not required by our district. And also, so few colleges require it. There are only 3. So we're just going to save everybody from that. And if they want to take, if they're planning on going to those 3 colleges that do require it, they'll need to take it on one of the national test dates, for which we have fee waivers. Additionally, after those test scores come back, you guys will be able to look at it and think about if you're curious about the SAT. And I haven't mentioned this before, but here it is. Coming up, we're going to work on figuring out the schedule for each junior to have a one-on-one meeting with me in the spring. And before they meet with me, like, there's a long questionnaire that they fill out just to, like, kind of say, like, where they are in this, or where they see themselves, or what they're curious about. And so that way I have a little bit of a heads up. And then we'll have a little bit of time together to be able to just kind of talk about the things that are important to them right now, and moving forward, like, what kind of strategies and what kind of resources we'll develop, or what kind of strategies we'll develop and resources we'll use. Again, we're going to be doing college search and create the college list and school links during those Friday visits. And we'll work on requests for letters of recommendation. So that's looking ahead. Parents, right now, it's, I think that, like, helping your student to either hop on to the ACT website to maybe do a little practice would be the best. Like that would be the best thing to do, just so that they don't feel like aliens when they're like, I don't know what I'm doing and I haven't done this before. But that way they can kind of get used to some of the questions on there, because they can be kind of tricky, and it's nice to be able to do a little tutoring to see where they're slipping in the double negatives to try to trick everyone. All right, I see some potential that there might be potential questions in the chat. And here we go. Let's see. Oh, wait, okay. Ms. Foster says, how many letters? Okay, this is a great question. Letters of recommendation. Okay, so what I recommend when it comes to how many letters of recommendation a student should have, I always say you need to have a letter of recommendation from one of your academic teachers, okay? And so when I say that, I mean, I say that because colleges will request, they'll say, we only want a letter, or we want one letter to be from one of your core teachers, such as your English teacher, your science teacher, or your math teacher, right? So, and I didn't say this before, but I'll add this now. Immediately students will think, I'm going to ask this such and such teacher because he's so cool and he seems to like me and we're cool. That's not who we want a letter from. And that's great. I appreciate that relationship. I think that is a great perspective on that relationship. But who we want the letter from is a teacher who has seen you grow, and maybe like has seen you challenged and has seen you grow, because that's going to be a great letter. So I recommend from an academic teacher. And then if your student is, say, applying to an art school, or they're applying to like even like Tennessee Tech for engineering, like have them talk with Miss Cowden, and since she's our STEM and engineering teacher, and have get her on board. She is a great resource if that aligns with your students' interests. The same with if your student is just like a voracious reader and writer, have your student talk with Miss Coleman, who is our creative writing teacher. She will write recommendations as well. So usually I tell students, and again, this kind of depends on the strategy. Generally it's 2 letters that they need. Every once in a while, there will be a school that will ask for a 3rd letter. And if that is the case, I would recommend just, maybe I could talk about it with them so that we could figure out who would be the best person for that 3rd letter. Because sometimes it is not, sometimes the student already has the academic teacher, already has one from maybe like an arts or a STEM teacher or an elective teacher. And then that 3rd one could be, their youth pastor, or it could be their piano teacher, which I realize like may sound like what, but like legitimately, like that is who we want to go to 3rd. And it doesn't necessarily have to be that 3rd letter comes from somebody here at school. There are students who like will sometimes like collect letters of recommendation, and I don't recommend that, just because we want quality over quantity, and we want to make sure we're hitting those marks that are required by the different colleges and that we're being strategic about it. So I hope that answers the question. Like, we want to make sure that it's academic teacher, possibly an elective teacher. It could be another academic teacher. And then if there's a requirement for a 3rd, like I would recommend somebody else. And Ms. Little asks, are you working with students in junior English only? What about the students? Oh, yes, who are taking AP Research or AP Seminar just as an alternative? Yeah, that's a great question. So last Friday, I think some of them were out. And so they do actually join the junior English classes. Miss Coleman and I actually exchange messages regularly, and I have one that goes off on a timer every Friday morning to say, hey, don't forget to send your guys over to the junior English class. And we've talked about how we want to make sure, I want to make sure that they are not missing like critical instructional content, because that time is so precious with their instructors. And so those seminar and research students do get to come to the junior English classes, and
Yeah,
it's
that's
really
good. She
nice to
was
have
like, yeah, I've
everybody
never met Miss
together.
Keys. And I was like, oh, crud.
Oh
But
no, I hear that. I hear
they
that.
were at a
Yeah,
field trip last Friday. So yeah.
right. They were. Yeah, and it was funny because I was looking around like, oh my gosh, why are we missing? This is the class period when I'm supposed to have. And then I was like, oh yeah, they're on a field trip. Okay, that's a legitimate reason. Like, well, I'll catch up with them. They don't need to worry. And again, just like for both you parents and for students, like I tell them all the time, I'm like, look, I'm not gonna let a deadline go by. You're not behind on anything, in spite of maybe like if you have friends at other schools or family members, even like siblings who go to other schools, and like the things that they're working on might be different from the timeline that we're on. Like I tell them, I promise we're not on time. Like, I mean, you're not behind. We are on time. And also that they will know, like I will say, okay, we're gonna focus on this right now because more things are going to come at us, and we want to make sure that we are not overwhelmed, because you really can't have more than like three things on your plate at once, at least at my dinner table. I know it's terrible, I'm just a weirdo like that. And then okay, so I see, okay, this question, oh, thank you, Miss Wilkes, for putting that in there. And yeah, all right, Miss Little, I hope that was helpful. I'm going to make sure, yeah, I'm going to make sure in the future that all of the students have access to the information. And then for those who are absent, it's a little bit tricky for me to track them down to say like, hey, like let's look at these slides together. So I'm going to work on like almost like a buddy system for that, for them to be able to rely on a classmate for some content. And I can share the slides with them, but then that way, like if there is something that comes up in discussion, as it often does with juniors, that is not in the slides, their friends will be able to talk with them about it. So yeah, if you all have questions that you think of after you leave here, feel free to email me. I'm going to drop my email in the chat really quickly. And there are times when I am just like super quick to respond. And then there are other times when I take a little bit because of various things going on, and sometimes too many emails. They just keep coming. But I see them. And when you have a question, like it does help me to meet whatever needs are coming up. Again, I really appreciate you all taking time to attend this meeting. And for those of you who are not here, like to take the time to look, to watch this. Oh, I see a question from Miss Kimberly. There are 4 parts to ACT. What is the biggest tutoring needed for prep? Okay, entirely dependent on the student. However, the trend is math. It's math. And I think that is improving every year, but that is a trend that I see. There are some students who just blow the top off of math, and it's not the thing. And maybe it is that reading is the section. But I would say that like generally speaking, for as far as like the biggest need, math is first. Second, I would say is probably reading. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I might have to look at that again, because I feel like, yeah, I feel like it is reading. For a couple of years ago, it was science, but I feel like for the last 2 rounds of ACT, it's been reading. Interesting. But yeah, math is number one. And I believe that it is because the math questions are written to be trick questions. I think that they are not only asking you, to do the opposite operation in a very like implicit way, but then they're using all of these double negatives that make it all the more confusing. And when I have been in ACT prep sessions with juniors in the past, the focus has been like over the years, like the focus is usually on those trick math questions. It's like, okay, let's try this together. Why did you guys get the answer that you got? And where is the trick that we need to look out for here? So yeah, I think that math is usually it's the one. It's the one. Yeah. If you think of a question, otherwise anybody thinks of a question when you leave, email me. Again, I'm sorry that this was a longer one of the longer meetings, but I appreciate you all hanging in, and I hope that y'all are having a good week so far. And, we'll be back on here. I think it's in March. I'll have to look at the exact date because I can't remember at this moment. And so I hope that, students will take the opportunity to, do a little practice for the ACT. If they don't, if your child just like straight up refuses, as sometimes they do, okay, like they'll take the test and then they'll be able to see, how things go. And sometimes that can be the thing that will motivate them to get busy on, one way or the other. So, parents just like talking to you as a parent, like that, I know how complicated and tricky that can get. So, if those conversations are no longer productive, you can pause and revisit them later. And I'll talk with your students as well, in those one-on-ones just to try to help and figure out, what the best strategy is going to be. All right, y'all go eat or whatever it is that you're going to do if you're going to go work out. And I hope you have a great evening, and I'll see y'all soon. Bye.